incredible store, incredible operation you got going here. I'm so excited that we're a part of it. And it looks like we're a big part of it. So that means a lot to me. I'm Dan Garrison with Garrison Brothers Distillery. I'm here to tell you a little bit about the first bourbon ever made outside of Kentucky in America since before Prohibition, believe it or not. We were it. I woke up one morning after my wife and I had talked the night before, and she said, well, what are you going to do? You don't have a job. I was a software marketing guy. And when Enron collapsed, I lost my gig completely. I lost about 17,000 shares of Commerce One stock. Commerce One was a software company out of California that had just acquired my company, which was called Extra Prize. So she said, what are you going to do? You've been out of work for 2 years now and you don't have a job. What are you going to do? And I said, I'm still working on it. And that night we were reading the newspaper, and there was an article about a guy that was going to create yet another Texas vodka. That would mean 5 Texas vodkas and no Texas whiskeys whatsoever at the point in time. This was 2001. And she said, what do you like? And I said, well, I really like bourbon. And she said, well, why don't you go to Kentucky and learn how to make bourbon? And I said, are you really going to buy me a plane ticket to go to Kentucky and learn how to make bourbon? She said, yes, I am. And I was gone for 10 days. I called her at the end of 10 days, and I said, I'm not coming home yet. I've stumbled into something that is big, and it could be really big. So I wrote a letter to the Tax and Trade Bureau, formerly the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, and I've still got that later framed in my distillery. I would love you to come see my distillery because I'm very proud of it. But the letter said, one question: can I make bourbon in Texas and call it bourbon? And the guy wrote me back and said, an email back and said, of course you can. Why would you think otherwise? And I said, because everybody in America thinks that bourbon has to come from Kentucky. And I knew it was going to be an uphill battle then, because not only did I have to teach them that you could make bourbon outside of Kentucky, I had to teach consumers that you could make bourbon outside of Kentucky, but I also had to teach them that good bourbon can come from other states in the United States. Since then, we've opened up about 250 distilleries in Texas that are making some really fine bourbon. And a lot of them are my friends and colleagues, and we all work together to make a better product every single year. Our resolve in Texas is to build the industry. Despite all of the mafia issues, despite all of the bureaucratic issues, despite closures of distributors all over the country, we are going to make Texas bourbon a thing. And it's already happening. The guys at Iron Root make some fantastic bourbons. The guys at Ranger Creek make some fantastic bourbons. And they're all friends of mine. We're all doing it together in cohesion. And we're getting to a point where we can actually affect some legislation that goes through. For example, we would like to be able to ship bottles direct from our distillery. We'd like to be able to sell more than 2 bottles per customer every single day. And we can't do that right now. So we're starting to have some legislative play, some legislative effect in Texas. But Texas is a stronghold for the distributors and also for the 3-tier system and the retailers. And we work directly with all the retailers very closely on all the legislation that we want. We walk up to them and we say, here's what we would like to try to get passed at the next legislative session. And they say, nope, strike this, strike this, strike this, strike this, strike this. Now you can try it. So that we go back to the legislature and try again. It's a bitch. And that's the hardest part of my job today, is trying to get legislation passed. For example, selling bourbon on Sundays. We are closed on Sundays. That's the second biggest tourism day in the hill country where my distillery is. We would get 300 to 400 people a day on Sundays buying bourbons if we could stay open, but we were not allowed to be open, which is ridiculous. It should be retailer's choice. If you want to stay open, stay open. I have a feeling you guys are probably open 7 days a week, right? So competition is competition. Get with it and let it happen. It's good for the industry overall. So anyway, the bourbons that we're going to taste today, I guess we're just starting with the small batch. The small batch is the first bourbon whiskey ever made outside of Kentucky. I released my first bottles in 2010. I gave 100 of those bottles to my heroes from Texas, Nolan Ryan, the pitcher for the Texas Rangers. I gave a bottle to Herb Kelleher, the CEO of Southwest Airlines. I gave a bottle to Roger Staubach. I gave a bottle to Terry Allen, country western singer that I've always loved, who wrote Desert Highway, great song. And all of those 5 that I just mentioned wrote me letters back saying, thanks, I'm really pleased to try your bourbon. I can't wait to try it. And they did. And it was a 1-year-old, so it burned like hell, but they didn't talk bad about me, so that was a good thing. But they got a free bottle that's a keepsake that they'll never be able to get anywhere else. That was a recipe that was 74% corn, 15% soft red winter wheat, and 11% barley. Every bourbon we make today, save one, which is called high rye, and we had to do a high rye. We're not rye drinkers at Garrison Brothers. We're weeded bourbon drinkers. And we've always wanted to make weeded bourbons, but we made a high rye because the town we're in is called Hye, Hye. You got to do it, right? But that's got a green wax label. We just sold one at auction last week for $13,000 because we've only done it one time. And we probably will not do the high rye again for a year or two, a lot more. It's a bitch. We have to shut down the whole facility, clean all the tanks, to get all the rye out of it, and then run the rye through and then clean all the tanks again. So it puts us out of commission for almost 2 months to make a rye bourbon whiskey. But I'm sure we'll do it again. The small batch is my baby. It's the only one I can afford in this whole lineup. Well, I can afford the Honey Eater too because they're equally priced. This is my wife's bourbon. She's been bitching at me for 25 years to make a honey-infused bourbon. Well, if you infuse any sort of bourbon with a flavor, it's no longer technically a bourbon. So I had to send flowers to the TTB officer who was reading my request for label approval. And I sent her flowers, and I sent her donuts, and I sent her a bottle of bourbon to tell her, thanks, please pass this. It would make my wife very happy, which would make me very happy. So that's Garrison Brothers Honeydew. You'll probably meet my wife at some point. She's absolutely fantastic spokesperson for us. She's also the only person in the world that believed that this idea would work back in the day. And so she loaned me the money to get it off the ground. And today she's my largest investor. I hold more stock than she does, thank God, because I got sweat equity out of it. But she's fantastic. She's a great spokesperson. The new honeydew bottles that you get next time will have her picture on the label. That's my picture there before I decided to shave off my white beard because I look like Santa Claus. This is called single barrel. Whenever we pull a barrel out of the barn and it doesn't taste like caramel, chocolate, vanilla, or honey, then we set that aside for the single barrel program. And the single barrel program means that we're going to custom make this particular barrel. All the liquid from this barrel went into single barrel bottles. So we know exactly what number and how many of them were. This was bottle 54, which probably yielded, it was probably a 30-gallon barrel, so it probably yielded about 100 bottles total. But this is 94 proof. That's our that's our single barrel program. There's a good story that goes along with that. Y'all know who David Trone is? He's the founder of Total Wine and More. And I was sitting in a liquor store in Harlem, up in New York. I was working with Joanna, who's one of my most fantastic salespeople for the group we were with, the distributor we were with. And my phone rings, and it's David Trone. And I'm like, I never talked to this guy in my entire life, but it's David Trone on my phone. I had his number programmed in there because one day I was going to call him. And I stepped outside to a McDonald's parking lot, and I said, Mr. Trone, how can I help you? And he said, Dan, I've got a deal for you, buddy. I'm going to sell a $20 bottle of Garrison Brothers to all of my stores, all 350 of my stores across the country, and you're going to get rich as sin because the margin's going to be great, and we're going to put it on Spirits Direct, and you're going to blast it up and blow it up. And I said, Mr. Trump, we don't make cheap bourbon. Sorry. However, we do have this project coming out called the Single Barrel Program. How would you like to be the first customer in America to have single barrels? And he said, oh shit, how much are those going to cost me? I said, about $109. They'd probably retail for about $129 a bottle. I said, damn it, Dan. And I said, how many barrels do you want, Mr. Trotter? He said, 350. And I said, okay. And I came back and I called Donis, my master distiller. I said, shit, man, we got to come up with this product. I just invented I pulled it out of my ass on the phone call with David Trone. And sure enough, we made about $1.7 million on that sale of those barrels to David Trone. And it kept us alive. We would have gone bankrupt in 2015 if that had not happened. So God bless David Trone for doing it. And God bless me for making the ask. You got to make the ask, right? So that's the single barrel program. Next is Balmorhea. Balmorhea got its name because there's a state park out in West Texas that is named after the three guys that started the first irrigation company in West Texas. It's called Balmorhea, Jim Ball, Thomas O'Shea, and Jim Moore. And they were Irishmen who started an irrigation company. So they combined their names to create the city of Balmorhea, which is next door to a pool called Balmorhea State Park. And that was built in 1935 by the Civilian Conservation Corps. It's absolutely beautiful. It's a 3.5 acre pool, absolutely gorgeous. My wife and I went skinny dipping there when she was younger, and we were impetuous and crazy. And so we named it Balmorhea because when Donis brought me the little sample of it to try it, he always gives me a little 2-ounce sample for anything we're about to release or considering releasing. And I put it up to the stars, and the Milky Way was out just in full force. And it was absolutely gorgeous night, pitch black except for the stars. And it just kind of shimmered. And I saw the shimmer, and it reminded me of swimming with my wife in Balmaray State Park, buck ass naked. So that's why we called it Balmaray. My marketing director said, that's the worst name ever. Nobody knows how to pronounce it. People are going to be butchering the pronunciation. And I said, well, that's not my problem. That's your problem. You're the marketing guy. This is Cowboy Bourbon. We introduced Cowboy Bourbon in 2015. This really put us on the map because this won gold at the San Francisco Wine and Spirits Awards competition, which everybody in Kentucky said, huh? This 10-year-old Texas group just won gold at San Francisco, and we did. And if I tell you a secret, can you assure it doesn't go beyond this room? Oh, it's on TV. Is this live?
Yeah.
Well, I'll save the secret for afterward. We'll have a drink together, maybe. The Cowboy Bourbon really put us on the map. It's also the subject of lawsuits and a great history. And do y'all believe in karma? When I launched this bourbon, the woman who claimed to own the trademark for the term cowboy in the whiskey category with the United States Post Office Patent and Trademark Office, she claimed that she had a patent or a trademark for the word cowboy because she claimed that she had a bourbon called Cowboy Little Barrel. Well, no, I've been drinking bourbon since I was 13 years old. I know every bourbon that's on the market. There's never been a Cowboy Little Barrel, and she's lying. And so I told my board of directors, we're going to fight this. And my board said, why are we fighting this? Diageo just got sued by the same lady for trademark protection. And Diageo settled with him, paid her out $250,000 just to go away. And my board said, no, we're not going to fight this lawsuit. I said, yes, we are, because there's no Cowboy Little Barrel, and there never has been a Cowboy Little Barrel. And then I called some of my friends that I've gotten to know in Kentucky, and I said, tell me about this Cowboy Little Barrel. Are you making that for someone? And they said, we're not allowed to talk about it. I said, oh, under NDA. Well, she just sued me. And I'm going to sue you if you don't tell me the truth about this. And they said, oh, we don't want to go through that, Dan. There is no Cowboy Little Barrel. It's never happened. It's never been on the market. And she created fake advertisements in front of the judge. We went to the courts, Judge Sam Sparks in federal court in Austin, Texas. And Sam Sparks has opened the courtroom procedures with, hey, welcome to our courtroom. Y'all, we're going to have some fun today. And he's talking to the jurors over here. There's a group of 13 jurors. We're going to have some fun today. We got a whiskey case. My daddy drank whiskey growing up, and I drank whiskey with him growing up, and everybody loves whiskey. So we're going to have a whiskey case. And Nancy and I are looking at each other going, yes. Yes. So I got up on the stand, and they interrogated me. Their lawyers interrogated me about why I created this fake bourbon from Texas. It wasn't even from Kentucky, and called it Cowboy Bourbon. I said, because we deserve to call it Cowboy Bourbon. We're the West, and they're not. And California is sure, that's West too, but if it's coming from Kentucky, everybody knows it's coming from Kentucky. And I can tell you exactly who made it, and I can actually get him on the stand if I need to, who made that bourbon whiskey. And it's never been sold in the United States of America, so it can't have a U.S. patent on it or trademark on it whatsoever. So we won. Have you all ever heard of the case of Varsity Blues, the college scandal? Guess who had to pay $500,000 because she put her son through USC based on a Varsity Blues donation of $500,000 to the coach, one of the football coaches at USC. Her name's Marcy Palatella, and I'm not embarrassed to say it publicly on TV. Marcy cost me $250,000, but it was worth every penny to get it done. So she went to jail. She did 6 months in jail. This is Garrison Brothers Red, White, and Blue Bourbon. This raises money for the boot campaign, and we love working with them. They're a good organization. Their administrative costs are hardly, there's hardly any administrative costs whatsoever. All the money goes to the veterans that need coverage for PTS and PTSD training and counseling, and that's what we want to do. So that's what this is all about here. If this bottle has this tag on it, it was actually bottled by a volunteer who came out to our distillery who was a veteran, or they can't put that tag on there. So it means a lot to us to get the Red, White, and Blue Bourbon out there. Thank you for ordering as much as you have. It means a lot to us. Very much. It's good stuff. The other bourbons we have are called Ladybird, and there's another one out that, and I think you have some Ladybird back in the back. That's the Purple Prairie wax. Every time someone buys a bottle of that, $5 goes to the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center. My wife was on the board of directors of the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center. The Lady Bird is honeydew at cask strength, but it's also aged 2 more years in a cognac cask. So that's what differentiates it. And it's surely candy, just like Laguna Madre. It's candy. It's sweet. It's delicious. You can chug it right out of the bottle at 115 proof, and it doesn't burn going down. And that's how I used to sell the Cowboy when I was out in the market. I'd take the Cowboy into a liquor store, and they'd say, "Oh, it's 140 proof," and I'd say, "Yeah, it's 140 proof." And they'd say, "Nobody's going to drink 140 proof bourbon." I'd say, "Oh, really?" Look. So, very pleased that you guys are selling the bourbon. Which one is that? The Cowboy? Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
The brand is wait.
Yep. That one's 139, I think.
39.
144 So that was the one we did in our 9th year. That was our Cowboy bourbon. I'll buy it. Oh, you got budget? So the Lady Bird is the one that was aged in a cognac cask for 2 more years. It's this bourbon though, except it's cask strength instead of cutting it down to 80 proof, which is where my wife likes her bourbon.
How old is this one?
The Cowboy? Minimum of 5 years. some of the barrels were as old as 10 years old.
That Texas heat, though. Yeah, but I thought the Texas were only on 4 years because of the fluctuation in the
Over time, that's true. Originally, we were actually making custom barrels out of half-inch thick staves because they would blow up all the time in our barn. The first 10 barrels I filled them all the way up at 124 proof, but I filled them 100% full, so the bung was under pressure, and every single one of those barrels exploded. So I lost my first 10 barrels. But today, I'm working with Independent Stave. I'm working with Kelvin Cooperage and the Barrel Mill up in Minnesota. We've been working together for so long, they've gotten better and better at building barrels that don't explode and can handle the heat. Thank you. I think so too. So what else? My brother's in the business. In 2008, my business partner, who was supposed to be the finance guy behind the business, left the business. We had words, and I told him to get the hell off the property, and he did. And so I had to change the business structure, and my brother joined the company. My brother was living in Arizona at the time. He ran a bunch of food stores or sandwich shops, and he shut all those down and came to join the business. He handles all of our major accounts like Landry's Restaurants Corp, and does a really good job with it. Do y'all have any questions? Hannah, have I missed anything important?
Never.
Well, we're really proud to be working with the Vintage. God bless you guys. Thank you very much for selling our bourbon.